you all. I hope you guys are good. So दोस्तों today's topic is all about managing infrastructure with Terraform. But before we get started, if you have not already, make sure to hit that subscribe button and the notification bell so you never miss any of my future videos. Now let's jump right into managing infrastructure with Terraform. So managing infrastructure with Terraform is a powerful and efficient way to provision, manage and update your infrastructure as code. So Terraform allows you to define your infrastructure resources such as servers, databases and networks using declarative language called Hashicorp configuration language, HCL, right? So here's an explanation with a real-time example. Let's say you want to provision a web application infrastructure on a cloud provider like Amazon Web Service AWS using Terraform. So you would typically start it by creating a new Terraform configuration file. Let's call in main.tf. TF is basically extension of Terraform. So and define your desired infrastructure in it, right? So basically this is the Terraform file, right? So here first you write provide configuration, provider is AWS, reason is this. Next define an AWS EC2 instance. So resource is basically AWS instance, web server, AMI, Amazon machine image, this, and then instance type is T2 micro, name key name is my key pair, right? Third one is define a security group for inbound traffic. So resource is this, right? And the name is web server security group, as means security groups, right? Description allow inbound traffic for web server. And then ingress, so from port is 80 and to port is 80, and then protocol is TCP and CIDI blocks is this. So basically in the above example, we are using the AWS provider to provision an EC2 instance and a security group. So the EC2 instance is created based on the specified Amazon machine image AMI and instance type. So the security group allow inbound traffic on port 80, basically port 80 is for HTTP for any IP address. Get it? So to deploy this infrastructure, you would navigate to the directory where your main.tf file is located and run the following Terraform commands. First, you run Terraform init, basically initialize the Terraform configuration and downloads the necessary providers plugins. Get it? Second one is Terraform plan. So generate the execution plan that shows what action Terraform will perform to reach the desired state. Get it? Third one is Terraform apply. So execute the plan and create or update the infrastructure resources. So Terraform will communicate with the AWS Amazon Web Service API, create the specified resources and configure them according to your desired state. So the state of your infrastructure is stored in your local or remote backend, enabling Terraform to track changes and manage update effectively. Get it? For example, if you later modify your main.tf, get it, file to add another EC2 instance, running Terraform plan will show you the planned changes before applying them. Terraform will only make the necessary updates to achieve the desired state, ensuring that your infrastructure is always in sync with your configuration. So by using Terraform, you can easily manage and version your infrastructure as code, promote collaboration among team members, and automate the deployment and maintenance of your infrastructure across different cloud providers or environments. Get it? So second one is creating and managing basic infrastructure resources. Get it? For example, virtual machines, network, storage, like how to creating and managing basic infrastructure resources in Terraform. So here an example of using Terraform to create and manage basic infrastructure resource like virtual machine, networks and storage. Let's assume we want to provision a simple three-tier web application infrastructure in Microsoft Azure. Get it? So first I'm explain this. So दोस्तों these blocks are basically provider configuration. So these blocks define the Azure provider for Terraform, allowing Terraform to interact with Microsoft Azure, and the provider block begins with provider Azure RM. Get it? So next block is resource group. So first I'm described features, right? Here is right features. So basically features, the features block specifies that all available features of the Azure provider should be enabled, and this block ensures that the provider support all the latest feature and functionality provided by Azure. Get it? So next one is resource group. So guys, basically this block, right? So first I'm explain resource block group, resource block. So the block begins with resource and Azure RM resources group, right? So this block instructs Terraform to manage an Azure resource grouping using the Azure Resource Manager ARM provider. Get it? So second one is resource identifier. So basically the identifier, right? So basically the identifier example, right? So after Azure RM resources group, so is a user defined name for the specific resources block, and it is used to reference this resource elsewhere in the configuration, right? Next one is name and location. So basically the name parameters specifies the name of the resource group as my resource group, and you can replace this with your desired name. Get it? And the location parameters set the Azure region where the resource group will be created, and in this example it is set to West US, so you can choose the appropriate region for your deployment. Get it? Third one is this block, basically virtual network, right? So resource block here, resource block is the resource block begins with the resource Azure RM network, right? Virtual network. So the block instruct Terraform to manage an Azure virtual network using the Azure Resource Manager ARM provider. And the resource identifier, so that identifier example after Azure RM virtual network is a user defined name for the specific resource block, and it is used to reference the resource elsewhere in the configuration. Get it? So third one is name, right? So basically name, the name parameter specifies the name of the virtual network as my virtual network, right? And you can replace it this with your desired name. Fourth one is address space. So basically the address space parameters defines the IP address space for the virtual network, and in this example it is set to this, right? So indicating that the vnet will have an IP address range of this, right? So and range like 10.0.0.0.002 to 10.0.255.255. Get it? So दोस्तों next one is location. So the location parameter reference the location of the resource group where the virtual network will be created, and it uses the value of Azure RM resources group dot example dot location, right? and to inherit the location from the associated resource group, right? And then resource group name. So the resource group name parameter specifies the name of the resource group where the virtual network will be created, and it uses the value of Azure RM resources group.example.name to reference the associated resource group. Get it? So next one is basically this block, subnet block, right? So basically this blocks, first I'm explain resource block. So basically the blocks begin with resource Azure RM subnet, right? And this block instructs Terraform to manage an Azure subnet using the Azure Resources Manager ARM provider. And resource identifiers, basically the identifier examples after Azure RM subnet is a user defined name for the specific resource block, and it is used to reference this resource elsewhere in the configuration. Get it? And third one is name. So the name parameter, this is basically specified the name of the subnet as my subnet, and you can replace this with your desired name. Get it? Fourth one is resource group name. So the resource group name, right, parameter specifies the name of the resource group that contains the virtual network associated with the subnet, and it uses the value of Azure RM resources group.example.name to reference the associated resource group. Get it? So second one is virtual network name. So basically the virtual network name parameter specifies the name of the resource group that contains the virtual network associated with the subnet, and it uses the value of Azure RM resource group dot example dot name to reference the associated resource group, right? Fifth one is virtual network name. So the virtual network name parameter, right, specifies the name of the virtual network to which the subnet belongs, and it uses the value of Azure RM virtual network dot example dot name to reference the associated virtual network. Get it? Sixth one is address prefixes. So basically the address prefixes parameters define the IP address range for the subnet. In this example, it is set to 10.0.1.0/24, right? Indicating that the subnet will have an IP address range of 10.0.1.0 to 10.0.1.255 with a subnet mask of 255.255.255.0. Get it? So next one is public IP, right? So I'm explaining this block. So basically here first I'm explaining resource block. So same as the resource blocks begin with resource Azure RM and Azure RM public IP, and this block instructs Terraform to manage an Azure public IP address using the Azure Resource Manager ARM provider. And second one is resource identifier. So the identifier example after Azure RM public IP is a user defined name for the specific resource block, and it is used to reference the resource elsewhere in the configuration. Third one is name. So basically the name parameter specifies the name of the public IP address as my public IP, and you can replace this with your desired name. And location, the location parameter references the location of the resource group where the public IP address will be created, and it uses the value of Azure RM resources group dot example dot location to inherit the location from the associated resource group. Fifth one is resource group name. So the resource group name parameter specifies the name of the resource group where the public IP address will be created, and it uses the value of Azure RM resources group.example.name to reference the associated resource group. Sixth one is allocation method. So basically the allocation method parameters set the IP addresses allocation method to dynamic, and this means that the public IP address will be dynamically assigned by Azure when associated with the resource. Get it? So दोस्तों Next is network interface, right? So resource is this, name is this, right? Location is this, right? And group name is this, right? So here is right IP configuration, right? Basically this is new. So the IP configuration block defines the IP configuration setting for the network interface, and the name parameter sets the name of the IP configuration as my IP configuration, and the subnet ID parameter references the ID of the subnet where the network interface will be attached, and it uses the value of Azure RM subnet dot example dot ID to reference the associated subnet. Get it? And the private IP addresses allocation, basically parameters set the private IP address allocation method to dynamic, meaning it will be assigned dynamically by Azure, and the public IP address ID parameter references the ID of the public IP address to associate with the network interface, and it uses the value of Azure RM public IP dot example dot ID to reference the associated public IP address. Get it? So, next one is virtual machine, right? Basically, this block, right? So, uh, here is right. Resource name is this, location is this, group name is this. Basically, these are same, and network interface ID, right? So, basically, the network interface IDs parameters in array that specifies the IDs of the interface to associate with the virtual machine, and it uses the value of Azure RM network interface dot example dot ID to reference the associated network interface, right? So next one is VM size. So the VM size parameter sets the size of the virtual machine to standard DS2 V2. You can adjust the according to your requirements. Get it? Is next one is storage image reference, right? So basically the storage image reference, the block specifies the publisher offer like SKU and version of the operating system image used for the virtual machine, and in this example the VM will be based on the canonical publisher, right? So Ubuntu server offers 16.04 LTS, right? And SKU and the latest version available. And next one is storage OS disk. So the storage OS disk block configures the virtual machine's OS disk, and the name parameter specifies the name of the OS disk as my OS disk, and the caching, right? This is right caching parameter sets the caching behavior of the OS, basically operating system disk, to read write, and the create option parameter specifies like that the OS disk should be created from the selected image, right? And last one is the manage disk types parameter sets the manage disk type to standard LRS, basically standard locally redundant storage. Get it? The next one is OS profile. This, so basically the OS profile blocks define the computer name, admin username, and admin password for the virtual machine, right? And operating system, basically virtual machine's operating system, and the computer name parameter sets the computer name of the virtual machine to my VM, and the admin username parameter specifies the admin username for the virtual machine, and the admin password parameter sets the admin password for the virtual machine. Get it? And OS profile Linux configuration, this block basically, right? So basically this block is specifies to Linux based virtual machine and configures additional setting. The disable password authentication parameters set whether password based authentication is allowed for the virtual machine, and in this case it is set to false, right? meaning password authentication is enabled. So by using the resource block Terraform, we'll create an Azure virtual machine with the specified resource group, and the virtual machine will have the specified configuration including the associated networking interface, VM size, operating system image, OS disk setting, and the OS profile, right? So in this example, we are using the Azure provider to create infrastructure resources, right? Breakdown, I'm explaining this already, but I'm read this resource group basically that define the Azure resource group where the all resources will be deployed, right? Virtual network basically creates a virtual network within IP address spaces. Subnet defines a subnet within the virtual network. Public IP allocates a dynamic public IP address. Fifth one is network interface, configures a network interface with an IP configuration linked to the subnet and public IP. Virtual machine deploys a virtual machine with the specified configuration including the network interface, operating system, and disk setting, right? Basically I'm explained this already, right, in a detail, right? So here I'm right in short. And to deploy the infrastructure follows this step. Save the configuration in a file named main.tf, and then initialize the Terraform configuration by running Terraform init in the directory containing the main.tf file. Third one is review the execution plan using Terraform plan and apply the changes by running Terraform plan, Terraform apply. Confirm the changes when promoted, right? So Terraform will communicate with the Azure API to provision the specified resources according to the desired state, and you can use similar principles to manage other infrastructure resources by referring to the documentation and example provided by the Azure provider and Terraform. Get it? So there are left two topics, right? Terraform state management and report backends, and working with Terraform workspace and environment. So these topics are covered in next video, right? Because video is long, right? So hopefully you find the information useful and learn something new. So thank you all for watching this video. To quickly recap, we discussed in this video is uh, first is basically managing infrastructure with Terraform, right? And creating and managing basic infrastructure resource, example virtual machines, networks, right? And storage, right? So if you have any questions or would you like to share your thoughts, please leave a comment below, and don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more content like this. We appreciate your support and look forward to seeing you in the next video. Take care and have a fantastic day.